All right, everybody, welcome back to Horn Takes. I am your host, Sean Redfern. Folks, we made it to Michigan yesterday. Did get a chance to get over by the campus and over by the stadium, but could not find a place to do a show. So I got a little distracted yesterday, having a few beers, talking to a few Michigan folks, talking to a lot of Texas folks. Didn't get the show in yesterday like I intended, but that's okay because we've got today. Today, we're going to talk about Michigan, folks. We're going to talk about our predictions, our four keys on this game. We will do our Trace Otra games predictions. For those of you that have watched the show for a while, you know what Trace Otra games are. The three games outside of the Texas game that we pick every week. Uh, we have a good time with those. And last year, we started off really slow, but we came battling back. And I believe our percentage last year was like 70%. And that was after going I think we dipped below 500 a little bit early in the season, and then we pushed ourselves back over 500. So that's what we're going to be doing today, folks. We got Twitter, TikTok, YouTube at Horn Takes. Check us out. If you don't like watching videos, you can check us out on all the podcast places. The got us on Apple Podcast, iHeart Podcast, Spotify. You can find us on Horn Takes podcast.buzzsprout.com to check out podcast episodes as well. Will say I'm testing out a Rode Wireless Go 2 sort of wireless microphone system. So if the audio is bad, I apologize for the audio being bad. Hopefully, it's really good because it was really expensive. So we'll see how that goes. Trace Ultra games, folks, and there's it took me a minute to find it, but there's some pretty good games this week. We usually try to do ranked opponents and opponents that are similar in ranking most of the time. In week two, it's kind of hard to find a lot of that, but I think we did find three really good games for you guys. We got number 15 Tennessee at number 24 NC State to kick us off. This game is a 6:30 p.m. Central Time kick on ABC. Tennessee going in as a 7.5 point favorite the other day. I don't know what it is today, but that's the last I saw. Folks, I think Tennessee's going to score a lot of points this year. I mean, they've always been good on offense under Heupel. The defense has gotten a little bit better, and you know when you have good defense, it helps the offense out tremendously. I think that offense could even be better as Nico progresses. I'm not even going to try to say his last name. Just a big kid, really good ball player. I think once he gets more comfortable in that offense, he's really going to do great things at Tennessee, at least offensively. So as long as Josh Heupel is the coach at the University of Tennessee, that team is going to score offense or score points. I think the question mark, if there is a question mark for this Tennessee team, is defensively. Can they continue to improve defensively and maybe get to the point where they can compete with teams like Georgia, Alabama? Those teams are so great because they can score and they can stop you from scoring really, really well. So uh, you see a lot with these sort of offensive minded head coaches. The defense can tend to struggle. I think Josh Heupel knows what he's got to do with that defense. It's just a matter of getting the players in there, developing those players. It's all about recruiting. It's all about developing, and then keeping guys around. That's always tough. I think this Tennessee offensive line is going to be really, really good this year. They get a lot of guys back. They're obviously experienced together. So I think Tennessee is going to be a really good team this season. They're coming off a 69-3 beatdown of Chattanooga. So I don't think we really know a whole lot about this Tennessee team, other than they can score a lot of points and hold a team that's really bad to almost no points. So uh, generally, when a team does that in week one, they have a pretty good squad. So I think Tennessee's going to be really good. The NC State offense, they look to be improved this season, but the defense is going to be a problem, I think. And they're going to have to step up big time if they want to have any sort of chance against Tennessee in this game. NC State's coming off a beatdown of, actually, it's not a beatdown. They beat Western Carolina 38-21 in week one. I didn't even know there was a Western Carolina. So I think if you look at these two teams, one of them looked really good in week one against poor competition. One of them just kind of looked okay, better offensively. The defense struggled against weak competition in game one. Tennessee's roster is absolutely loaded. And even though this is their first road test of this season, I think they pass it with flying colors. I'm going to take Tennessee 41-17, way cover the points against NC State. Iowa State and number 25 Iowa. This is this is always one of those sort of early season matchups that's just really good. And I think they usually score a combined like 9 points uh, in this game. Both teams just struggle big time on offense. Iowa, we know. Man, I don't even know what Iowa's scoring average was last season, but it had to be really low. They just are not an offensive juggernaut, but they can play defense. This game kicks at 2:30 p.m. Central Time on CBS. Iowa is a 2.5 point favorite in this game at home, which generally a home game is kind of worth like 3 points. So if you really, if this was a neutral site game, Iowa State might be favored in this game, or maybe just a slight dog in this game. So I think this is going to be a really good, close, tight, low scoring type of game. I'm going to take ISU in the upset on the road. I just think, like we said, both teams offensively not going to be these big, high scoring offenses, and they're going to play tough defense. They're going to be tough in the trenches. I just think ISU has an advantage offensively that Iowa does not have. And I think the defense will be able to do just enough to keep Iowa at bay, which, again, is not that tough to do as most teams keep Iowa at bay offensively. I think ISU wins this one 17-9. Next game, I did this game last year and it bit me in the ass. I was talking earlier about my Trace Otra games and how we went low. I rolled on Colorado a lot, and I took other teams against Colorado a lot early last season because honestly, I just didn't think they were going to be that good. I thought that Shadur Sanders would get overwhelmed by the speed of the game at the D1 level. I mean, yeah, he did really great at the Division One AA level at Jackson State. He did awesome, but I just felt like these bigger schools with all this speed and all this talent were just going to be a little bit too much for Shadur Sanders, and I was wrong about that. I was right about him being not a good team, and I think this year is going to be worse for Colorado. I just can't see this team doing much. I watched most of the game against North Dakota State, and they are undisciplined. They're exactly what you would expect. They can score some points because they have a couple of really good skill guys to go along with Shadur Sanders. But outside of that, the roster is just not that talented. It's a 6:30 p.m. kick Central Time. Nebraska is a 7.5 point favorite in this game. Looking for payback from last year's early season loss to CU. As we mentioned, you got Shadur Sanders, you got Jimmy Horn Jr., and you got Travis Hunter. Those are the guys for Colorado. If those guys don't show out, this Colorado team is in trouble because they can't stop anybody. They can't run the football worth a lick. Those guys looked really good in that 31-26 week one win over North Dakota State. I think Shadur Sanders threw for more yards than any other quarterback in the country in week one. It was over 400 yards. What can you say about Travis Hunter? He played 11 billion of the 11 billion in 5 plays that went on during that game. Scored 2 touchdowns offensively. I thought he got away with some pushes, but that's okay. If they don't call it, it didn't happen, right? But still, just a really great athlete. He is going to be a problem for anybody that they play. Nebraska was really bad on offense last year, and I mean just horrible. Can't remember who they played in the first game last year, but watching that game was one of the most painful things I've ever had to watch as just a college football fan. So they look to turn that around this year, and they've got a freshman phenom QB, Dylan Raiola, son of Dominic Raiola, I believe, the offensive lineman from back in the maybe the early 2000s is when Dominic played at Nebraska. He was either a late 90s guy or a early 2000s guy. Really good player for them, went on to play in the NFL, but his son, really good quarterback. They beat UTEP 40-7 in week one. So the offense definitely looks to be improved. I know it's just UTEP, so we're not going to draw too many conclusions from a big win like that over UTEP, over a team like UTEP. But I still think this is a team last year that would have struggled against UTEP offensively. They just could not get anything done. They got a big play wide receiver in Isaiah Nair, the transfer from Texas. I always loved that kid. It's really unfortunate that he hurt his knee and just never could get into the rotation at wide receiver there at Texas, but definitely an athlete. Big, long kid that's fast, can definitely chop the top off the head of the defense. And I think that's something that Nebraska just hasn't had in a very long time is a receiver that can get down the field, can go and make contested catches. Well, they have that now in Isaiah Nair. I think it's going to be a tough game for CU on the road. Nebraska fans are super excited about this team. I think Nebraska fans have always been excited about their teams, even though a lot of them haven't been very good in a really long time, but they're exceptionally excited about this team. Nebraska, back in its glory days, was always a tough place to play. Rule can build a program, and that's why this fan base is excited. What he did down at Baylor was outstanding. I think he can do the same thing at Nebraska. He's starting to turn the page recruiting. So this Nebraska program is about to be a program. I'm not going to say they're on the cusp of glory again, but they're always going to be, as long as Matt Rule is there, this Nebraska program will be a really good program, and it'll be respected. All the things you look for in a big time Division I program, and basically the opposite of what you got going on at Colorado. I think Colorado's offense, I think they're going to get there. They're going to make some big plays and they'll score some points. But Nebraska is going to exact revenge on Colorado and in an absolute big way tomorrow night. Nebraska 47, Colorado 27. That's the Trace Ocher games for this week. We'll come back next week. We'll talk about how we did. All right, folks, get down to the and you know what, folks? I forgot to do this. So I'm going to show y'all my cool little deals that I did. I always get so excited talking, I forget to utilize my brand new toy that lets me set up all these cool graphics and things. So there you go. All right, folks, it is time for 4 keys and a prediction for this Michigan game. Make Number one key for Texas is to make Michigan one-dimensional on offense. They're breaking in almost an entirely new offensive unit, including the quarterback, the entire offensive line, wide receivers. The running backs have some experience. The only guy that started last year on this team was the big tight end, number 18. We talked about him on the show the other day. Really, really good talent. They're going to want to run the football. They're going to want to come out and establish that they can run the football. That's Michigan's game. And then they're going to try to beat you over the top, even though they're really, really not good at that this year. At least in week one, they weren't good at it. But that's Michigan's deal. We want to run the football. We want to establish the line of scrimmage. Texas is going to want to load up the box and dare Michigan to try to beat them over the top through the air. Uh, they didn't do that very well against Fresno State. And I know the Texas secondary was not that great last year, especially in long yardage, especially in long pass play type situations. But I think they're better this year, and I think that's what they want to try to do. Load up, try to stop that run and get Michigan out of the mindset that they need to run the ball or that they even can run the ball anymore. Texas can get some early scores and stop the run and force Michigan to throw. I think it could be a really long day for Michigan, at home in the big house. So look for guys like Jade Barron and Jalen Gilbo. These are the star guys for Texas. I know Jade Barron is now a cornerback in some cases, but he still plays that star position. I would look for those guys to be hanging out around the line of scrimmage a lot in the run game and make a big impact on this game early on in the run game. Key number two, keep Michigan's defense off balance. These guys, they want to load up on early downs, stop the run, and then they want to drop into this loose coverage once they've won first down and second down, and they want to, really make things tough on you and let that front four eat on passing downs. So they bring a lot of blitz looks early on, and then they get you behind the chains, and then that's where teams that can't block 4 with 5 have a big problem against Michigan. And I'm I'm not saying Texas can block 4 with 5. I would hope they can, but again, this Michigan defensive line, really really good defensive line. So it'll be real interesting to see Michigan what Texas can do against this Michigan defense to keep them off balance. They want to, if things don't work out early with Texas, I think Texas wants to come in and try to run the ball a little bit, establish that they've got a good offensive line, they can win in the trenches. That's a big part of Steve Sarkisian's mindset is run the ball when you have to run the ball. And I think he might come into this game thinking to himself, we need to run the ball early. We need to keep them off balance. If Texas can come in and run the ball early, things will get real ugly for Michigan. So it'll be imperative for Michigan to try to stop the run against Texas. And I think what you'll see if Texas can't do that is you're going to see Steve Sarkisian get really wild with his play calling. He's going to be running the ball when a lot of people think he should be passing the ball. He's going to be passing the ball when a lot of people think he should be running the ball. Again, if they can't run and do it that way and set things up over the top with that running game, then they're going to have to find ways to get Michigan more vanilla defensively, keep them off balance, Don't let them settle into what they want to do and dictate how things will go to you. So that's key number two. Keep Michigan's defense off balance. Key number three, protect the football. Goes without saying in most cases, but Michigan was one of the best in the country last season at taking the football away. I think they had 4 or 5 fumble recoveries. They had 20 to 20 plus INTs. So this is a team that hunts the ball. They get back in that zone coverage. You tip the ball. It goes up in the air. There's 50 guys standing back there watching the ball in front of them. Someone catches it. A lot of interceptions that way. Then on these sort of exotic blitz packages they get quarterbacks to dump the ball early to places they shouldn't because they don't expect to be the guy that's there to be there because they move guys around, they drop linemen back. Really fun to watch their defense sort of chess match they have with offenses. If you're Texas, you're on the road against the top 10 team. You got to protect the football. So, I mean, I think if you're Texas, you could probably get away with one, but you cannot get away with two, three, four types of turnovers. I mean, we saw it last year in the Oklahoma game. Cannot turn the ball over early the way Texas did and keep doing it throughout the game and expect to win a whole lot of football games. So protect the football, key number three. Number four, and this one might be the biggest one, take the crowd out of the game early. Besides the biennial home game with Ohio State, this is probably the biggest home game for Michigan in a long, long time. You got Texas, who's coming in highly, highly ranked. A lot of expectations for Texas. You've got a series that doesn't have a lot of blood, but the blood it does have is a 1-0 last second field goal to win what was it, 38 to 37 in the Rose Bowl, the 2005 Rose Bowl, the 2004 2005 season. Just a great game by Vince Young. Kind of put Texas on the map from a national perspective in that game. And so Michigan wants to pay that back, and they want to pay it back in a big way at home. Then you look at the Big House, 110,000 folks. I mean, and that's probably a rough estimate. I don't know exactly what it holds, but it holds well over 100,000 people. And folks, we drove by the stadium yesterday, and that place is big. So I don't know how loud it gets in there. It's a lot down in the ground, and the seating kind of goes out as you get further up the seats. So I think a lot of that noise probably goes up. So I don't necessarily think it's going to be just ridiculously loud in there, but you certainly will feel it. There will be energy in the stadium if Michigan can continue to have success. And I think the crowd could start to become a really big factor the longer you go in this game if it stays close. So for Texas, they want to come in and be the storm early, try to make some big plays over the top early, get this Michigan crowd just out of the game. If it's 3rd and 10 late in the game, you don't want the crowd hollering. You don't want it to be tough on your guys to hear what's going on late in the game because those are critical downs, right? You want a bunch of Michigan fans sitting on their hands wondering what the hell happened for the last 3 quarters. So key number four, take the crowd out of the game early, and I think they'll do that by again trying to take some shots. We didn't see it in week one. We know that deep balls are a big part of Steve Sarkisian's offensive philosophy, and I think he's got a lot of wide receivers this year that can get down the field, make some plays down the field. Prediction time, folks. Listen, Michigan has a really good football team. I know they replaced a ton of guys off of that national championship team. I know they replaced a bunch of coaches from that national championship team, but I still think this is a really good team. They're going to be disciplined. They're obviously going to be really tough. All that being said, I think Texas is better almost everywhere up and down the roster from a personnel perspective. QB, Texas is better. Running back, I think Texas is better. Wide receiver, Texas is clearly better. Offensive line, I think Texas is better and they're way more experienced. Defensive line, Michigan is better. Absolutely 100%. I'm still not sold on our defensive line, especially the interior guys. I think the potential's there. I don't know if the consistency's there for them to have the same type of year as Tavondre Sweat and Byron Murphy had last season. So Michigan gets the nod there. Linebacker, this is probably a push. I don't know much about Michigan's linebacker. I know Ant Hill is really good. I know David Benda is really good. But I think when you look at Texas defensively, linebacker, either it's quietly so good that you don't notice it, but I don't know that in that scheme, the linebacker play is as important as the back end play and the play up front. We talked on the show the other day about how we thought that this year, defensively for Texas, stopping the run is going to look a lot different. Last year, you had Byron Murphy, Tavondre Sweat blowing up plays, making a lot of tackles. This year, I think you're going to have to see defensive tackles eating up blocks and linebackers making plays. So I think that this linebacker unit is super talented. I just don't know if we're going to see it from a stat perspective. So we'll just have to see there. Anyway, Michigan's either better, maybe a push. I don't know. Secondary, maybe Michigan slightly better. They've got one of the best cornerbacks in the country for sure. He will be the best defensive backfield player on the field, I think. Although Texas has some really good young talent, so we'll just have to see how that goes. For me, the only big concern and I have lots of concerns, but the only big concern I have about this game is the Texas run defense. Colorado State is not a great running team, but they were able to have some success on the ground against Texas. So I think this is a big opportunity for that Texas defensive line to put an early stamp on 2024 and tell the college football world you still can't run on Texas. So I think if Texas were to have the same type of performance this week against the run that they did last week, which I think they gave up like 118 yards on the ground, maybe a little more. So not a huge day on the ground, but there were times when it was pretty leaky, and guys from Colorado State got some pretty big gains, whereas last year they just would have got shut down completely and got almost nothing. So it wasn't terrible last week, but I think they're stepping up in competition this week. So if they could hold Michigan to around that total on the ground, especially with that running quarterback orgy, which I think will factor in this game. I think maybe last ditch effort for Michigan is we can't run the ball traditionally. We're going to have to and that may be part of their game plan from the start. We're going to bring in this really good quarterback that can run the ball really well, and just see what happens. That might be kind of their Hail Mary from a game plan perspective. But if they can slow that down the way they slowed down Colorado State last week overall, that'll be a huge win for this defensive line. And I think if they do that, they win the football game. If Michigan, on the flip side, if they can establish the running game, it's going to keep Texas off balance. It's going to open things up a little bit for those inexperienced quarterbacks, and look for number 18, that big tight end for Michigan, to be a big time security blanket. He caught a lot of passes last week. He had a lot of yards last week. I think he was 10 catches, 87 yards, and a touchdown. And they threw to him in a lot of sort of critical moments. And I think in most cases, that's their number one read. They're going to line him up all over the place. It's kind of like backyard football. You put your best guy where you want him, you find the matchup you want, you throw him a ball. And he's got good hands, he's got decent speed. He's a big bodied guy, so he can sort of shield off defensive backs. So I think all of those things will be really interesting to see as we head into the game tomorrow. Ultimately, listen, we talked about it. Texas has better depth. They've got better players. They've got the best quarterback on the field. We talk about, the college football is very much a quarterback league. You have good quarterback play, you're going to do well in college football. They clearly have the better quarterback of the two teams. I think this game is going to be sort of tight in the first half, and I wouldn't surprise me at all if Michigan had a small lead at halftime. But I think as the game wears on, Texas's depth is going to be just too much for Michigan, and I think you'll see Texas start to make some plays. I think you'll start to see Texas be able to run the ball better than they probably can early on, and I think they'll pull away in the second half. I got Texas 27-13 over Michigan. I think this is going to sound like I'm two-faced a little bit, but I'm going to go with 27-13 because I think that's what's going to happen. I really do think it's going to be close at the half, and then Texas will pull away late. But I could see this game, if Texas can shut down the running game early, get a lot of offensive possessions, and hit some big plays. This could be the type of game that could completely get away from Michigan at home. We've seen lesser teams do it to better teams. So but my prediction I'm going to stick with 27-13. It's going to be tight early on. We'll just see what happens as the game wears on. That's the final show of the week, folks, and we will be back. We fly on Sunday, early Sunday to get back home. We'll be back before lunch. We'll come back Monday with some Drunk Sean initial reactions. Those are always fun to me. I hope you guys enjoy them. Find us on Twitter, TikTok, and YouTube at Horn Takes. Give us a subscribe, give us a follow. Won't cost you guys a thing, but we appreciate the support. Email me at horntakespodcast@gmail.com with all your questions, comments, concerns, and criticisms. Folks, I am excited Texas fans, we should all be excited. Tomorrow's going to be a great day at the big house. I can't wait. Weather's going to be beautiful. You guys have a good one. Get hooked.